So I'm recording now. Just make sure my collar is not too rumpled. Okay.
Flip the back. The back is a little up. Make it smooth. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And now pull it down from below your chest. Like, there you go.
Yeah, it's better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're recording. And now share. Live stream. Live on Workplace. I wonder what live on Workplace from Meta is. There's this thing it's new called Workplace from Meta, and maybe that would be Instagram and Facebook, but I don't know. Okay, here we go to YouTube, to my account. By the way, you could post Staying Sane. So what do we call this? Staying Sane? How
maybe like the value of psychedelics in our
so I'm gonna say psychedelics because that's sexy.
Psychedelics and sanity. I think that's great.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. Why am I misspelling it? Are you still sharing, by the way?
No, not at all.
Okay. And sanity.
And then maybe colon, add some something, right? Like psychedelics and sanity. Where's the real value? Something like that.
I think that's great. Psychedelics and sanity is good. It's already intriguing. It kind of says what you want. I think it's good.
I feel like more words pull people in, but if you like it as is, it's fine.
Psychedelics and sanity. Like I would say something like losing your mind to find your mind, but it's not that. It's more elaborate.
So, I don't like riddles. I like copywriting that's very direct, and when people see the words, like what actually makes somebody click on something is that that's a question I've asked myself, right? Like, is it valuable for you?
Yeah, let's just say with this, and I think this is good. Psychedelics and sanity. Okay, go live. Here we go. Okay. We're going to be live any moment now.
In fact, this moment, I believe.
Maybe I will monitor. Okay. We're going to be live any moment.
Okay, it's happening.
Here we are. Welcome, everybody, to the Staying Sane Podcast. I'm just turning down the volume. Welcome. My name is Albert Nerenberg. I'm with hypnotherapist Cassandra McLean. We're both hypnotherapists who do a regular kind of experimental podcast called Staying Sane. The idea is that we live in crazy times where there are a lot of stresses, worries, energies that are trying to drive us crazy and drive us stressy as well. And we talk about the tools, techniques, and methods by which you can not only stay sane, but thrive in this atmosphere. Is that fair? Is that sort of what we're doing?
I like to pick words apart and be semantic. Yes. I would say that the crazy world isn't trying to drive us insane. I don't know that it's intent. Well, yes, there are powers that be that are fragmenting our mind on purpose for capitalism. Yep. But I think it's more like it's a quicksand thing that we've talked about before in the podcast. And I also think that we're contributing unwittingly, and we're here to like wake up to like, oh, I'm contributing to the insanity of the world. Oops, let me stop doing that. I think there's a lot there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay, so that sounds like a plan. Let us. Today we have a theme, which is psychedelics and sanity. We've both had experiences with psychedelics. I've worked on documentaries related to psychedelics. I've taken psychedelics, and you had an experience recently. I should mention you are currently in Tulum, Mexico, and it's interesting. There's a very thriving. I know that area, and there's a thriving kind of experiment. Like people can just go there and they can do 5-MeO DMT. They can do ayahuasca. There's even posters. Like the only place I've seen in the world where you have big posters like on the street corners advertising ayahuasca ceremonies. That's like a unique to kind of Yucatan thing. I mean, you might see it in New York City, but it's not really that common other places. So tell us, you had an ayahuasca experience just now. What was it like? Where to
Sure.
start?
I wanna stipulate that I didn't like see a flyer on the side of the highway that was like ayahuasca, and I was like, that's for me.
Yeah. But I
As
was saying
you
that happens there. Yeah.
in our pre-talk before we launched live, you had begun sharing that there is a real phenomena where ayahuasca is a medicine that calls you. And I will say that in 2013, in one of the most incredible life-changing experiences of my life, I was in Rio de Janeiro with a group of artists from all over the world. We were painting boats. It was life-changing magic. It was the most incredible, special time of my life. And I'm 23, 24 years old. I'm with the coolest people I've ever met. I've never had a friend group that was so like, I'm part of this group of these like artists from all over the world who are just like partying in Rio and painting boats, and just everyone is so cool and interesting. And everyone was going to do ayahuasca. And I felt so authentically in my intuition, like, I'm not go. Don't go. Don't do it. It was so hard for me to listen to that. And I remember we were in a hostel that was like up in the jungle mountain, and you had to like walk up over 100 steps to get to the hostel. And I remember being on the deck and like looking down and seeing all my friends going to have, and they were so like, where? And I'm just like alone up there, like, have fun. Like, I can't believe I'm not joining these people. But I knew in my heart, like, I was not meant to go that day. And I thought there'll be another opportunity soon. And in a sense, there were other opportunities, but it just felt like I'm not forcing it. I'm not forcing it. And when I arrived here, and as you mentioned, Tulum does have a culture where, taking sacred medicine, doing ceremonies, sound healing, Kundalini, like it's a very spiritual vortex place. And it was like, yeah, I have to do this now. Now's the time. And the feeling for me was actually kind of switched, where I was like, in the past, I wanted to do it, but felt that I shouldn't. And then I arrived where like, I feel like I should, and I'm a little scared, but it was the right time. So I asked a friend of mine who's been living here for 8 years, who's a phenomenal woman, an incredible human being. And I shared with her, I've been feeling this. And she said, I know the perfect place for you. I know these facilitators, they're super beautiful. So for people who maybe don't know what makes ayahuasca different from other psychedelics, let's do a brief review, and I'll let you take the lead because you're the more statistically knowledgeable person of the two of us here. But before I pass the mic to you, I'll just say, in my life, I've taken psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, 5-MeO DMT, cannabis, obviously, MDMA, ketamine, all with like ceremonial intention for healing and not partying, but for like, okay, for depth work. And each one is unique, and ayahuasca is super unique. So tell us about that. What makes these things different?
So, I mean, I got to remain humble and just not, I can't describe myself as a true expert on ayahuasca, but maybe I'll begin by talking about this interesting angle that you mentioned, that people are drawn to it. It seems to choose you at a particular time, and that's exactly what happened to me. I was hostile, not hostile, but when I first heard about it, and I also had friends or hipsters that I knew that were out doing ayahuasca, it did not appeal to me, because the first thing you hear about it is, oh, you're going to throw up. And then you might even shit yourself. Like, geez, like this does not sound like fun, and it was quite horrifying to learn about, frankly. And I was like, how does this help people get, feel better? And so I personally was very critical of the idea. I thought it was like kind of a fad, until I was doing a show. This is quite a while ago, maybe 10 years ago, in Toronto, called the Hypnotic Bar. It was a stage hypnosis show where I would hypnotize people to experience altered states. And at the end of one of the shows, a group of people showed up, like it was like a small gang. And they were like, hi, we'd like to talk to you. And I thought, I was scared. I was like, well, why? And they were like, oh, you can hypnotize people to experience altered states. Can you hypnotize people to experience ayahuasca? And my answer was, actually, I don't know, because I haven't had the experience myself. So this is where it gets weird. So they were so intrigued and enthusiastic that we did do it. We arranged these special sessions at somebody's apartment, where people who had experienced ayahuasca were hypnotized to re-experience it. And it was done with some of the cultural factors, meaning the music, the incense, there was
Setting.
no setting, there was no actual ayahuasca. And some of the people went deep into state, and I would say that they said that they re-experienced ayahuasca, and it was very powerful. I saw them doing it. It was intense. So where this takes me is that I did this a bunch of times, hypnotic ayahuasca, and I saw an interesting application, which is ayahuasca is a rare experience, meaning you have to go to a ceremony and you got to pay money and it's this, that, and the other thing. While hypnotic ayahuasca has this weird advantage is that you can go back to the state and there's no intensity, there's no, in a sense, cost, and people can work through stuff that real ayahuasca might have brought up for them. Anyways, the moral of the story is, after doing this, I felt kind of weird because I was like, I've been helping people re-experience and experience ayahuasca, but I don't know what it is myself. And literally the next week, I got an email, a mysterious email from somebody who said, oh, there's an ayahuasca ceremony going on like kind of near you, and there's an extra seat. Would you want to attend? And I was like, that's weird that I would just get this email out of the blue. It was kind of me wondering, maybe I'd like to try ayahuasca. And so I was like, okay. And I went and had a very wild experience. And next thing I know, like, I've probably done it like 20, 30 times now. But that was the beginning. I got called to it despite my adversity. So
nice.
So tell us about your experience. So where do you go? What kind of place is it? What kind of people are there?
Right. So this is what I think is so interesting. As you mentioned, there are ceremonies. The medicine, first of all, is natural, right? When we said like LSD is a synthetic psychedelic, whereas psilocybin mushrooms are natural. 5-MeO-DMT can be a synthesized alkaloid, or you can get it from bufo, which is toad.
The secretion. Back of a toad, off the back of a toad, yes.
Which is natural. So, but ayahuasca is coming from this vine and prepared in a certain way, and it's really guarded. So you can't just like, where can I get some? You can't. The people who guard it only, just serve it in ceremonies. But the ceremonies have I've talked to a lot of people who had ceremonies participated in or drank, as we say. There's just such a big difference. I have a friend who was saying like they were in tents, like camping tents, and the shaman, and I'm very skeptical of self-proclaimed shamans. That's a whole other topic. But the shaman was like blowing smoke in in everybody's faces and like shaking sticks on them. And the Rio de Janeiro crowd, everybody had a wonderful time except for one girl. And when she just said why she didn't, I was like, that would have been me. She was like, they wouldn't let her wear her own clothes because everybody had to be wearing white. And there was like a graphic on her t-shirt or something. So they made her change her clothes. And she was like, I want to wear my own clothes. Like, why are you making me change my clothes? And she wanted to go outside and they wouldn't let her. And they were like, and I was like, oh God, that sounds horrible. So I was very fearful of like, I don't want to be in a space where some like weird energy person who's like, I'm a shaman and you have to listen to me, and like shaking and blowing smoke in my face. Like that just all sounds very bleh. And so my friend who I said, look, I'm feeling called to this medicine. She said, I know the perfect people. There are a couple here. They're super beautiful. The temple is divinely beautiful. It's like otherworldly beautiful temple in the jungle. And the people just bring so much light and love. It's all just loving and gentle. They're musicians, and the music they play, I can now attest, it's so ethereal. The woman especially is from another planet. There's no way this woman is an earthling, okay? She was playing like 15 instruments, in different times and singing. At one point, I was convinced there's no way this is one person playing one instrument. She was playing a harp, but it sounded like 3 harps and then harmonizing with it. I'm a musician. I'm a trained lifelong musician. I couldn't figure out how she was managing like stacking rhythms the way it was so incredible what she was able to do musically, that it really was just transcendent. We were allowed outside by yourself as you like. If you feel called to go outside, you can go outside. If you want to throw up outside and not into your bucket, you're welcome to do that. If you're, it was like they really respected people's freedom and self-governance. And yet there was a sense of, if you need help, we're here, but don't over ask for help. It's like in an extreme situation, like you can't get up and you need to go to the bathroom, you just will help you. But they were really leaving everybody alone. And the main rule was vow of silence. Keep yourself quiet. Don't distract your neighbor. Even things like sighing, like, like, okay, maybe, once, but find a way to silently do what you need to do. And I was, as you mentioned, fearful of like how much throwing up is involved in this. And I asked so many questions leading up to my participation, including, are there modern bathrooms? And they said, we have one compost toilet. And that made me so nervous. So I was like really limiting, you're supposed to follow a strict diet for the few days leading up to it, not just a diet of what you eat, but also like a mental diet. Don't consume media, news, things that just try to cleanse your whole thing, your body, mind, spirit, just like be clean and empty so the medicine can enter. And I made this like, I really got present with my body. I'm a meditator and a hypnotherapist, very spiritual person. And I was like, my goal is to not have to go near to that bathroom one time. If puke in the bucket is one thing, and I did purge once in that way. But I prepared my colon very meaningfully and very deliberately, like, no, I don't want to be, when they say one compost toilet, that could mean anything. I didn't know where I was going. I was going into the jungle of Mexico by myself. It could be like a bucket of sawdust. Like, I have no idea what one compost toilet means. All I know is I don't want to have to purge through my butt in like, no, please God, no. So my colon was aligned. We had a great time. I didn't even enter the bathroom space. I stayed in my space. I went outside. So this is all, the logistics leading up to the experience. But now, like, but what is it really? And
yeah, again, what was your experience?
I want to represent us to, this is the Staying Sane podcast, right? So what we're exploring here today is, what is the value of taking psychedelics to maintaining or improving one's sanity, which is marked by cognitive clarity and emotional regulation and behaviors that are in alignment with your values and your goals in your life. Like, having those three elements is an expression of an evidence of a sane mind. So to what degree is taking psychedelics valuable towards that end? And the overarching theme of my experience, was my first ayahuasca experience. I knew, this is sacred medicine. There's this ancient mother maternal spirit, and she can be very harsh. She'll take you to the depths of your traumas. And people have told me stories of like seeing demons. I had a friend say that she felt like she had an entity attachment and that like was like possessed for the rest of her life. People are saying like they're afraid they're going to die. Now, I am not afraid of death. So I was like, kill me. Great. Let's do that. I was like, I want to die. I want to experience that. I didn't go to that level of depth, but I had approached, I identify with warrior spirit generally, and always have. I'm a leader. I'm a fighter. I was raised to be that way. I come from a lineage of strong people. And when I entered this space, or even before, earlier in the day, I was like, I am not a leader in this space. I am not a warrior in this space. I am a humble pilgrim in this space, which is a archetype that I never identified with. Humble pilgrim, like a warrior looks at a humble pilgrim like, what's that? And it was so humbling. Like, I'm like a, barefoot, bedraggled, I know nothing. I'm ignorant. I know nothing. I'm nervous. And yet I'm seeking something that is humbling, because compared to this, who am I? That's who I am in this space. So I went into the medicine, and then most of the people in the room had other ceremonies, and that really put even the contrast more, that like, I really know nothing in this space. I'm here on the totem pole. And And so I approached the medicine with the intention of, I don't know if my intention matters. I'm here as a humble pilgrim. I respect that this is a powerful spiritual medicine, and I believe that this spirit knows what's best for me, and I'm willing to accept whatever you think is best for me. And if my intention matters, my intention is X and Y. If I can choose that I would like to have a result or an outcome in a certain area of my life or mind, I would like X. And then if I get 2, I choose X and Y. Both of those were met. I did receive the blessing of feeling resolution with both X and Y. And I got even more. But my experience was, I took my first cup and I laid back. We're in the dark, we're in the jungle, and I'm like waiting. And so much had happened. There were at least 2 hours of just being in the space before we even started the ceremony. But sitting in the space silently and waiting is the ceremony beginning. It's entering I'm detached from the other world. I'm here. Okay, I'm just getting present for 2 hours, and the sun is slowly setting. And then there's some conversation led by the guides, and then we do the actual ceremony where we're drinking. I shouldn't say the actual ceremony, because really the ceremony is the entire thing from the moment you walk through the door until the moment you say goodbye in the morning. But the moment of the ceremony where it's the time of drinking. So I take my drink, I said my thing, I laid back, and I felt the effect, right? The hypnotic effect of being in the space and all of the energy and the intention and some music and the darkness. But it wasn't, I was like, is this it? People are, so they had said after about 90 minutes, we will open the window where you can come up at any time and ask for another cup if you feel called to it, if you feel it's appropriate. Don't think to yourself, should I take more? You'll know if you should. And so as soon as they said the window is now open, I was experiencing nothing. And I'm like, I'm going for it. I took that second cup, and within 20 or 30 minutes, I was in it. I was like, okay, this is what people are talking about. The very first thing I experienced was this sense of like a dark, spidering energy, because the X of my X and Y was, I would like to find the root cause of the pain that I've had in the right side of my body, specifically located under my right scapula, subscap knot that's been to the side of my spine for since high school, basically. And I'm very sure it's got past life karma connected to it. Like, I've done everything from the physical plane, and it does not relent. So it's psychic in nature. And so far, hypnotherapy, I haven't gotten there. So I asked ayahuasca for help with that. Now, this was something that I found was great wisdom on my part. I'd a few days previously come to this sentence. I like one-liners. And I came up with the phrase, I'm not a demand for understanding, I'm a demand for healing. And what that means from the context of hypnotherapy is, psychotherapy is, you need to understand, why are you this way? Where did this come from? What made you like this? How come it's understanding, cognitive processing, reason, and logic? I could, at this point in my life, I don't give a fuck. I really don't. I just want to feel better. I don't need a textbook about how I got to be the way I am. I want to feel good. I want to be healed. My energy is flowing. I'm open. My heart is flowing. I'm full of love. I'm happy. I don't need to be circling in loops of because this, and then my mom, and then I don't want to hear the story anymore. I want to get the lesson, learn the lesson. Now I'm operating newly. Forget the story. So what I got with the ayahuasca was that when the medicine went into that spidering blackness that was here in the right side of my body, it was like, I don't need to understand or or see the memory. Just let the healing in. And I was like, I've already declared I'm a demand for healing, not for understanding. And so the medicine went right into that part of my body. And I felt it doing its work. And I've had such a different experience.
Wow.
Somatic, physically, physiologically, since just letting it in.
Just for people that are just joining us, you're watching an experimental podcast called the Staying Sane Podcast, where we talk about staying sane and thriving in this crazy world. We're talking about Cassandra is talking about her ayahuasca experience this weekend, I guess, and last weekend, and so bringing us up to date and how we think that psychedelics can be used or might be helpful for not only maintaining sanity but improving your mental health in general and heal, obviously physical health, not just mental health. Yeah.
Well, if you come from the model that, and I do, now I don't want to put like an actual number on it and then stake my flag in that number, but for the purpose of illustrating the point, I would say 97% of physical illness is psychosomatic. So if you believe in that model, which I do, you're always healing your body when you heal your mind.
So sorry. So when you did this, when you had this experience, so it didn't sound like you went into so much. People often start with ayahuasca and they have kind of scary first hour or so. You didn't sound like you had that. It sounded like it was pretty gentle and nice all around. And did other people, by the way, did other people who took the same medicine have the same experience?
No one has the same experience. Most of the people in the room, because I'm here in Tulum, which there's a very spiritual community, and this temple, these people, this is a closed ceremony. It's not go down the highway of Tulum and find there is a place I could walk there. I could walk there in 15 minutes. It's like Bufo, 5-MeO. Yeah, like they're just nice. Like they want you to go on in and dissolve your ego. And if you're called to go to that place, like go for it. I don't tell people what to do, but I knew people who knew people that you have to like be pre-approved before you're welcomed into the space. So there was a beautiful curated energy where, and I showed up nervous because it was I really didn't know what I was walking into, but the people who came through that door, the open hearts, the smiling faces, the clear eyes, each person was putting me at ease. It was like, I'm in a room with these people who've done this and this is what they're like. Okay. Whatever I need to go through to be more like the people that I'm here with, I'm going to do it. I like what's going on here. It was a very uplifting vibe, but I will say that one person, she wasn't I think she was somebody's friend of a friend kind of thing, because she showed up wearing a Dolce and Gabbana like workout set. And when you're on psychedelics, pro tip, you don't want to be wearing tight fitting clothes. You want to be in like the loosest muumuu, like linen blanket kind of, you don't want anything squeezing you. So this girl was wearing lipstick and I'm like, oh, this girl does not know I don't even know how she ended up in this room. She had, towards the end of the night, extreme trauma come up. It was very upsetting for me, because at that point, hours and hours had passed. I went through so much. It was so beautiful for me. I could honestly talk about this for like 5 hours, but I had so many discrete moments in the experience that were different and beautiful and also challenging. But the woman who had this extreme trauma, at that point, I was so lucid and felt so clear and present and happy. I'm a professional hypnotherapist. I'm recognizing this woman is an extreme trauma response. It wasn't a little crying. She was hyperventilating and it just kept going on and on and on. And the crying, the intense pain, it was not resolving. And I'm like, I have techniques and I'm of sound mind right now. I can go help this person. And I really needed to these people who were facilitating this ceremony have been doing it for 12 years. They're like angelic beings. As soon as they welcomed me in, I was like, they're angelic beings. It's like they're so spiritually sound and present. I have to let them do what they're doing. They know this medicine. I'm sure they've seen this before. This is stay in your lane, Cassandra. But like, I wanted to do eye movement therapy on this girl so bad. I was like, let me just help. But I just sit down. And if you want to help, just shine your heart and keep your mouth shut. And I did. But it really took something on my part to not want to be like, if you need me, I'm a trained professional. It's like, so are they in their own field, which is where you are. You're not in your field right now. You're in their world. Be in their world. Be that humble pilgrim. Keep your mouth closed. And I did. And I don't know what ended up happening with that girl, but she did eventually stop crying. To answer the original question from so long ago, the overarching theme, and now this is important to share on our podcast because we're here as hypnotists and hypnotherapists. I began my deep work in hypnotherapy 21 months ago. Now, I came to realize it was 21 months because for the longest time, I'd been saying, it's been about a year and a half since I left New Jersey. And when I say I left New Jersey, that's my euphemism for saying got divorced. It's like those two things are the same. The divorce process initiated when I left New Jersey. And that was this, my life crashing and burning like the Hindenburg, right? Like the lowest point of my whole life was when I left New Jersey. So since that moment, I kept saying, it's been about a year and a half. And just so much extreme commitment and devotion to, I'm doing hypnotherapy, I'm doing my own work, I'm meditating, I'm super committed to my transformation. Now, I realized it was 21 months there in that ceremony because it was the 21st of June, which was the solstice, summer solstice, which has its own significance. And then we realized, we're 21 in this room. So it was the 21st and then 21 people in the room. And that's already kind of cool. And then I was like, how long has it actually been since I left New Jersey? And it had been 21 months. And with the triple 21, I was like, that gave me such a feeling of peace. Like I'm super in alignment. Like I'm definitely meant to be here. So my experience was essentially this incredible validation that came from like an external, a sense of an external spiritual presence saying, everything that you're doing is working. You're doing great. This is a graduation. This is a completion. All that deep work, all that hypnotherapy, all that meditation, all the different ways that you're showing up in the world, your values, your behavioral changes, it's all right, correct, right path from a Buddha. Like this is the right path. Just let yourself be validated now. Rest. You don't need to go the hardest you've ever gone right here, right now. You need to celebrate that it's complete. It was like a completion. And when I allowed myself to just like be blissed out, like, oh my God, I'm being validated, not by like my friends or Instagram likes, but by like great grandmother spirit. Like you're doing well, child. Like I can just like, wow, feel so good about what I've been up to for 21 months because I've been working so hard on a psycho-spiritual dimension. That felt so good. And then I did get to I got to visit some sadnesses and purge them, some confusions and get clarity and resolution. But it wasn't like, let's go into like, but people who aren't doing committed work, and then you show up and you're like, ayahuasca will help me. That's when you're going to go and face your demons because you've been avoiding them, pretending they're not there, denying it, thinking, oh yeah, no, I do yoga once a week. I'm seeing my demons. Okay, ayahuasca will show you, no, you're not. They're here. But because I've been facing them.
I would add something that there's no rules. I mean, I think even saying that, I'm not so sure about it. In that ayahuasca by definition is humbling. Anybody who goes in and says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, doesn't usually get exactly what they want. That was, every time I did it, I found that it sometimes extremely pleasant. Like one thing a lot of people don't know is that ayahuasca can really feel fantastic. Even the whole process, I think what you described is maybe a little bit challenging in the beginning, but it can really, you often feel good throughout the whole ceremony. The music is beautiful. You have incredible experiences. But it always upends you. In my experience, it upends you in some way. And if you try to remain in control, you're not doing it right. It's not what it wants. It's not how it works. Or you've taken like not very much. And I should tell you about my Mexican experience because I had a really wild, went to sort of an outdoor temple in the jungle. So it was open air with like, you could see the stars, but it was like an enclosed space. And what was really funny, like every part of it was intriguing. Like, well, first of all, they had really powerful rapé, which is the tobacco that people smoked before. Some people had a bad reaction to that. That was a bit intense.
Isn't that the one that they put in your nose? They like blow us. Yeah, I've done
tobacco.
that one.
You did
I
not do
hated
that.
it so much. Oh my God. Not in this experience. I did it years ago.
Yeah.
And they made me, it was so harsh. And they were like, you have to do both nostrils. And I was like, please no. And they were like, you have to do both nostrils. I would never do that again.
Yeah.
But you liked it.
Sure about that part of it. But the funniest part was then everyone crowded into the room, which was the ceremony room, and people were arranging their blankets, and suddenly a woman screamed. And because she noticed that there was a scorpion, there was literally a scorpion on the floor. And there was two shamans, I think, but one of the shamans, who was an old grizzled kind of like classic shaman character, just went over to the scorpion, picked it up, and ate it. Really, I'm not exaggerating. He literally ate the scorpion.
Took a bite out of a live scorpion.
Yeah, I think he swallowed it. It happened very quickly. And we were like, oh, this is going to be an interesting evening. And that was the beginning of my, but before that, I have done it what I think a lot of people don't know is that they sort of think, oh, ayahuasca is this because that's the one event they went to or their friends went to. One thing I know about ayahuasca is that there are at least 12 different ceremonial traditions that come out of the Amazon, meaning there are 12 different Aboriginal tribes or indigenous tribes that do it completely different ways. That's what one thing that rubs me the wrong way. People are like, you absolutely have to do this is the only way to do it. No. Like, for example, there is a church in Brazil that uses ayahuasca. They don't. So you went to a ceremony where they wait till at night and they're like, you can't start before the sun goes down and you absolutely have to do this. Well, the church, they do it.
They didn't say it that way. They weren't harsh about it. It's just the way that they move.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying some of the traditions are very absolute about the way to do it. And in the church's method, you do it during the day. Everyone is facing each other. You sing together. Very different use of the substance. And within that, there's a whole range of different approaches. Now, I think it is good to be within probably a real tradition, but it is also, I found myself challenging the orthodoxy. There's a danger with ayahuasca that they don't tell you about, which I think is worth referencing. And that is that there's science that shows that what ayahuasca does is it works into the amygdala. It often sort of wakes up the amygdala. And for that reason, when people experience it, they are awakening their traumas or their traumatic history or their personal history. Now, at the same time as this is happening, they're telling you to lie on your mat and shut up. So let me explain. This is not necessarily good for everybody because you might be going through some distress. And it is probably a good idea. And normally we tell people when they're distressed, like, tell us what's going on, share your issue. And that's good. That's healing. But in the ceremony, they don't like it. And some people have demonstrated, and there's some research to show that ayahuasca can be re-traumatizing for people because what happens is they take it, they suddenly awaken their traumas. And now in normal life, they would tell people, I'm upset, I'm scared or whatever. But because they've been told to lie in the dark on their mat, they don't. Now, I think there is a component of it that is good in that, yeah, maybe it's good for you to manage your demons, so to speak. And that's often what happens. People work through it themselves. But there's been many examples of people coming out of ayahuasca experiences more traumatized than they went in. And I think it's because of this part of it. I think that's part you might want to challenge. Now, officially, the shaman would say, if you're upset, like, I'll come over and talk to you. But it's this awkward thing because you've got 20 people in a room. It's awkward for the shaman to talk to somebody and maybe emotionalize too much. You certainly can't go and talk to your friends or partners or whatever, because that's seen as, breaking the sanctimony of the situation. So that's one. I'm sort of speaking of the negative. But what's interesting, people should know.
I think it's important. I think it's important to speak to the complete idea. And that's what we're here to talk about. It's been nice to share. I went through, these were some of the peak experiences of my ceremony, and you've shared, less so, but mine's more fresh. But that's fun storytelling. But what we're really here to do on this podcast for the purpose of delivering value to those giving us their time is provide valuable information. And that includes, are you a suitable candidate to do psychedelics generally, whether it be ayahuasca or psilocybin or MDMA therapy. Is it right for you? And what do you need to know about these things? And one of the pieces that we very strongly caution against is the delusional. And when you hear delusional, we're talking insanity here on the Staying Sane podcast. The delusional idea that psychedelics are magical. Ayahuasca is this spiritual, magical medicine. All I have to do is take it and all my stuff will just be magically resolved. No, it will not. No, it will not. You still need to show up with your sound mind before and after the process to prepare for, integrate, align with. You have to do a lot of stuff that you choose to do from your heart space, from your head space, that help that the medicine gets you the results you're looking for. And that could include doing hypnotherapy as a follow-up. I need a session of post-plant medicine integration, or be accompanied. Maybe you're not suited to be in a dark room with 20 people and a shaman saying, be quiet and let the medicine work through you silently. Maybe you're suited to be with a MD, psychiatrist doing psilocybin or MDMA or ketamine facilitated therapy one-on-one with somebody. Maybe psychedelics are valuable to you, but in that environment, people are different, and you need to assess how real you're being with yourself and how prepared are you to go into the bowels of your internal hell, just guided by a spirit or your own, who knows? Like, how prepared are you?
Can I throw something in? I mean, there's a really interesting question, like why are psychedelics now so, let's say, popular in terms of this belief that somehow they help sort out your mental health?
Ooh, I have the answer to this one.
Go ahead. What's your answer?
I think that we come from a culture, our Western culture, especially United States culture, where we want a pill. I want a pill to solve this. I got a headache, give me a Tylenol. I got a stomachache, give me a Pepto-Bismol. Then there's this like awakened mind reaction to that. We're like, you shouldn't just want a pill to fix your stuff. You have to do the work. So psychedelics are like this cool middle ground where you're actually still operating from your conditioned programming, where a pill or a substance is going to solve all your problems. But because it's spirit medicine, you think that it's not the same thing as taking a Zoloft. But your approach to it subconsciously is actually the fucking exact same thing. And you need to get real with yourself on that.
That's a good point. That it's like it is taking a. People think it is taking a pill when it's not, because it really is journeying. It's a journey. Which can be, there's so many kinds of journeys. Literally, going for a walk is a journey, a sound journey, but psychedelic journey is what I think begins the process of healing. But here, I know a little bit about this, so I can maybe, for the people that might wonder or are intrigued. There's an interesting distinction between perception and reality of psychedelics. I've been involved with some documentaries on psychedelics, and I can tell you it's interesting. So the perception is that psychedelics kind of sort of magically sort you out because they're magic mushrooms, they're ayahuasca, they're 5-MeO-DMT. What I think is there is a mechanism that helps you sort things out, and that mechanism, I think, is the fact that you really do temporarily, in deep psychedelic experiences, actually lose your mind. Now, losing your mind might be a bit of an exaggeration. But losing your mind is a metaphor in this case. So there's been studies that have been done where they did brain scans of people in ayahuasca, and a brain scan of people in ayahuasca looks apparently an awful lot like a brain scan of somebody who is schizophrenic. And our experiences, maybe, I don't know if yours on ayahuasca, is like, I hear voices in my head. I'm not sure what reality is. I'm not exactly, don't know who I am. I can't speak clearly. I mean, you could look at that and it says, it kind of looks like a mental illness. And the beauty of it is that in the end of the process, you return to sanity, you return to clarity. And I think this is the part that's underestimated. It is the return to be able to focus, clarity, and normal, let's say, sanity, that is the exercise of the process. Meaning, it's not so much, the emphasis isn't, I'm going to go take some drugs and lose my mind. It is returning to your mind that is the beauty of some of the psychedelic experiences. And that's why the journey itself needs to be set up well. And there's another point that people may not know as well. So psychedelics are often a great way to create internal change for people. So how does that work? You feel kind of stuck in life, you feel trapped, and you wonder how you can change that. Well, I'll drop some acid, or I'll go to an ayahuasca ceremony, or I'll do magic mushrooms, and sometimes it seems to help people. Well, there's an interesting factor here, which is that psychedelics create neuroplasticity. They can actually, there's lots of research showing that this is a fact, that the brain becomes more flexible. But it's important to know the timing, and a lot of people don't know the timing. It's not actually so much in the ceremony. Your brain does not become more flexible in the ceremony. There's these neurotropic factors that come into play that actually matter after the ceremony, sometimes 3 to 5 days after the ceremony. This is a really key thing. That's where change is possible. This is actually very powerful for addiction. So this is why psychedelics help people for addiction. It's not because people think it's because, I do a ton of magic mushrooms, I suddenly understand that it's bad to be an addict. No, that's actually not what happens. People already know that it's not so great to be an addict. It's that actually they've created this state of brain flexibility where the brain can change. And now in the days that come after the journey, they can actually create a new path for themselves. And see, the reason I mention this is nobody talks about this. This is the key thing. If you do not create that new path, you don't get the new path. It doesn't happen magically. You have to decide, this is my new life. This is how I want to live now. And this is how I'm going to support living now. That's why integration is so important.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited to be putting very clearly on my menu of services post-plant medicine integration session. What came up, and now let's go into hypnotic trance and really wire it in deeply. Not while in that critical window. Man, this is really something to start putting more, to amplify into the world, because I know people, I've encountered people who are all about that psychedelic medicine. I've been taking psilocybin and but they're angry. They're angry still. They're rude. They're easily aggravated.
Yeah.
But when you're on drugs, you feel better. This is not helping you.
Yeah.
You're just, it's that, how can we say it? It's like deferring your responsibility onto a substance. And just because that substance may have special qualities and has a power to help you, doesn't mean that.
I'm just going to cut in because somebody's written to us to ask us, I think they're asking in Spanish, does this same effects reproduce with animals? So that's an interesting question. Like, do you mean, do animals have psychedelic experiences? I actually remember once my dog accidentally came across a bunch of edibles that somebody left on the floor, which was not very smart, and ate like
somebody left on the floor.
Well, they were in a package, and like dogs will find food on the floor, and the dog got in and ate all the edibles. So dog ate like a whole bunch of edibles, and my dog did not have a good time. I think people know this, that cannabis is not good for, don't give your dog cannabis, but there might be other experiences that dogs or other animals might enjoy. So sorry, just going to answer.
Do you know the story about the research team in the 60s that was like giving LSD to dolphins? It's it's hilarious story. You know this story?
No,
the best way for the person who wrote this question, if you search, don't leave our podcast, stay here with us. But after this podcast, if you search for, or put up in a queue in a separate tab, drunk history LSD, you'll get a beautifully hilarious dramatization of this real life story of how they were trying to find a way to learn a common language with dolphins. And so they were like, let's give them LSD and teach them to speak English, which is like, what? And then the people who were funding it, and Carl Sagan was like one of them, who was an advocate for this like great research, was like, we meant that you learn their language. You don't teach them English and give them drugs.
Yeah, so, there's a famous there's a famous film that you can see probably on YouTube where some British soldiers, the British Army gave some of their soldiers psychedelics and the LSD. And part of the joke was they then went on a mission. So they were told like to do reconnaissance and like scope out a sort of situation, but they were completely high on LSD. And the interesting thing was they then, like, the discipline completely deteriorated, and one guy climbed a tree. And it's an amazing scene of a soldier in a tree just laughing his ass off. But it was an example of the sort of the beauty of psychedelics, in the sense that it seemed to say that the soldiers would be incapable of hurting each other because they were so vulnerable. They're in these states of wonder about life and about meaning, and that they couldn't be soldiers anymore. And this is, some people have thought, it would be good if psychedelics were more common. I'm not sure it's absolutely true, but that if more people were doing psychedelics, then more people would have this universal sense of humanity. So the kind of intriguing side.
I would agree with that idea, but with more context. So I think that when you have societies or civilizations that include group rituals, that we enter an altered state together, whether it's a sweat lodge experience or a taking ayahuasca experience, but where there's this, like, we're all doing this because we know it has the value of bringing our spirits more alive and our egos dissolve, and we see that and we share this space, that creates a healthier society. I don't think across the board, hey, if more people took psychedelic drugs, we'd all be better. But I think that it's the doing it together and with intention, when that's more present in the world that you live in, and then you're invited in or you're called to participate, it's bringing connection. And as you said, I loved that you brought up vulnerability, the element of being vulnerable, not just with the medicine, where, as I said, I went up and took my first cup with like this incredibly humbled, like I'm literally shaking and my heart's beating out of my chest because I really don't know where I'm going or what's going to happen next. And that vulnerability was with the medicine, but it was also with everybody in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
even if it's not being spoken to or directly addressed or even consciously thought about, it's so present that once you do bring attention to it, it's like, oh my God, of course, it's as undeniable as the walls and the floor.
One thing we should maybe mention, because this is a hypnotherapy podcast and you were leaning into this, was how does hypnotherapy or hypnosis enter into it? Because a bunch of things that a lot of people probably don't know. So the reason I mentioned this business of the days after a psychedelic experience being the key, if you're about trying to make change, that is where hypnotherapy comes in. So it's like you may want to do hypnosis, self-hypnosis, or hypnotherapy right after a psychedelic experience, because now you're in the business of creating and changing habits. And the theory is that your brain at that moment has become more flexible and is more likely and more able to make change. And once those changes are made, because you're in a neuroplastic state, they become more permanent. But there's another factor too that people may not know. The other factor is that hypnosis is very good for revivifying states. So I've had a number of clients, not just with ayahuasca, but with other psychedelics, who had a very strange experience that they cannot figure out, but they feel is very important. The problem is they just can't get back to it. They can't figure out what happened.
Oh God, get on my calendar.
Yeah. So there's even a term for this. It's called revivification. That's apparently the correct term, where you can use hypnosis to revivify, bring back to life a state that you experienced in psychedelics. And I've done this a lot. It does work. It doesn't work every time, but it works most of the time.
See, interesting. I wouldn't use revivification in this sense. I mean, I think it's possible, but I don't think it's necessary to go there, because your subconscious mind knows that it's already been there. So, right, when I'm doing a childhood regression on somebody, for example, I don't need them to tell me exactly what's going on. They need to know what they're in, and they only need to know as much information as is needed in conscious awareness to penetrate to the transformation. So I don't think that would at all be my go-to approach in a post plant medicine or psychedelic experience hypnotherapy session for integration. I would just go into asking the subconscious mind, you showed me this. Why? Let's bring forward, you've Albert once called me the parts therapy queen. Let's bring forward the part of your mind that felt it was important to go there, see that, experience that, and speak directly to it. What called you to that? What was that all about? I don't know that it's necessary to revivify it, because the subconscious mind already knows where it's been.
I think it's what people often want. And it's also because the experience was so powerful. And there's some mystery to it. People aren't sure exactly what happened. I would say when you do know what happened, you don't need revivification. But you see, the other thing is that by definition, one of the things that makes psychedelics wonderful is that you're not in control. It's the psychedelic or the journey that is kind of running the show. And hypnotherapy can do something similar with trance. That the trance can take you back to the experience, and then we can let it play out kind of more naturally without anybody trying to over control it. So there are a few, what I'm saying, my point is a few applications. Hypnosis and psychedelics get along very well. I would say hypnosis is usually in the support role, but it is helpful that way. And that one, integration, sorting things out. Two, going back to mysterious experiences that you haven't figured out. But there's even a third, which is that you can recreate or create psychedelic experiences with hypnosis, which is another whole point, because people, they usually believe I'm joking when I say this, but if you're a good hypnotic subject, you can have psychedelic experiences under hypnosis. You don't need to risk your health with sometimes dangerous psychedelics, though I'm not telling people to not or to do them. I just think it's interesting. A lot of people don't know that that's an option.
Sure, but I think that you need a really skilled hypnotherapist by your side to use hypnosis in that way, whereas it might be easier to, because you can find any hypnotist anywhere, right? But like, you want somebody really well trained who knows what they're doing if you're asking them for that. And you brought up an interesting point about sometimes that's what the client wants. Does it need to be revivified? Maybe yes, maybe no, but if that's what they want, here in Tulum, because it's such a spiritually centered, I mean, I really love it here. I love the quality of people here. So many people want past life regressions from me. I'm getting a lot of people, you do past life regression? Oh, I want that. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I was just at a dinner last night with 6 people, and there was a lot of interest around this topic. And I really tried to emphasize my main job is to get you the results or the solution or the resolution that you want for yourself in your life. If going into a past life is where we need to go to get that outcome, that's where we'll go. But it's actually not often the case. It's usually something in childhood or something else. So if your goal is, I want to be at peace with my divorce, we're going to do the protocols that are most appropriate to get you there. But if the client is like, but I really want a past life regression, it's like, okay, let's do it. But it may not be the thing that you actually need if your goal is this. But if your goal is you just want to go to past life because it's cool, sure, I will also do that for you. But within myself, I feel a little resistance because I'm so committed to being a facilitator of the deepest level of healing that's possible in every session with every client. And if all they want to do is what I call past life tourism, where it's cool, but it's tourism, because we're not really digging gold that you then, and this is, a metaphor you may have heard me use in the past, is digging gold out, mining the gold, going into the depths, the hidden depths of your mind. They're hidden. I always emphasize that. People think, yeah, I've been to the hidden depths of my mind. I talked about it with my counselor. It's like, no. If you were talking about it, you weren't in the hidden depths. The hidden depths are when you go in there, you're like, whoa, I didn't know that was down there. In hypnosis and in psychedelics, we can open what was once hidden, mine out the treasure that's there, which is often a rescue mission, right? Like there's so much depth of work, and then take the gold out and then install it appropriately into your life moving forward. That's where you get phenomenal, miraculous transformation of who you show up as in the world. If you just want to open it up and be like, wow, in my past life, I was Amish. It's like, okay, great. How does that help you live a better quality life? I don't know, but it was cool. I'm like, okay, I'll do that for you, especially if you're paying me. I guess I'll do whatever you want. But but I really am a stand for, like, can we go to a depth where it really benefits you for the rest of your life after the session, that you're better because of the work we did, more than we went on a tourism tour?
I think it's an interesting question there, honestly, because I myself often have been skeptical about past life regression. I've done a lot of it because there's demand, and also I would say it's one of these things where you don't know. Meaning, often I'm skeptical, but then I will have an experience with a client. I was like, whoa, I did not expect that. And so it's a bit like ayahuasca. It's going to be humbling and surprising. And, it's interesting. I mean, it brings us back to the sort of broader theme. We're talking about psychedelics and sanity here for the Staying Sane podcast. Do psychedelics actually make you more sane if you use them? And I actually think arguably used well, the answer is kind of yes.
Agreed.
But there's a really interesting study from the University College London. It's one of the first studies that people think kind of cracked the theory of how psychedelics work. And what it seemed to say was that we have a default network. It's like a really interesting dance when you think about it. So we have, in our brain, there's a default system network, which is a
default mode network,
default mode network, right? Which is basically in charge of keeping reality on track, or you in reality. So you know where you are in space, you know what's around you, you know what's going on, you know what you're thinking. All these things that are sort of essential parts of consciousness. And when you take psychedelics, and when you reach a certain peak level of the use of the psychedelic substance, your ability to manage, or the default network, essentially collapses. And then what's weird is I think people assume, what the study showed, which was revolutionary, is people assume that what psychedelics are doing is that they're sort of painting something over reality. That's why, you see strange colors or weird hallucinations. Well,
the opposite.
It's the opposite. That's right. That the structure that is holding reality together for you is dissolved. And now you're seeing a kind of deeper reality, an uncontrolled reality that can be both educational, challenging, and in some cases wonderful, and terrifying sometimes. But that experience, if it's done with a supportive, safe setting, seems to help people get closer to some truths about themselves and the world.
This is wonderful. The dots are connecting for me through this illuminating conversation. Thus, I would say that it's a fact. We cannot experience all of reality all at once and be sane at the same time. Sanity is equal to having filters. You need to have filters. You can't be taking in, as I'm here talking to you, there's sounds going on over there, there's lights going on here, I feel the texture of the blanket, I'm aware of my spirit and my aura, I'm communicating with other, it's like, that's
can I add one important thing about that is that part of sanity is closed-mindedness. It's the ability to close your mind to things that you can't consider at this time. And it's a way of understanding.
I like filter better than closed-minded, but filtered-minded.
Let me explain why I'm saying that.
Okay.
Because it helps you understand conservatives. Conservative people believe in closed-mindedness as a kind of common sense way of understanding the world. And we might find that bigoted or wrong, but what they're doing is they're asserting their sanity. This is the way they assert their sanity sometimes. And I think that, so I mean it metaphorically closed-minded, but I do think you're making these calls. This is what I'm paying attention to, and this is why it really matters. And that's what I mean by closed-mindedness. But yeah, let's call it filters too.
Sure, but I will say you just gave a two-part definition. This is what I'm paying attention to, and this is why it matters. Though this is why it matters is your conscious mind's explanation, but let's separate the two and just focus on this is what I'm paying attention to in the context of this is all the stuff that I could be paying attention to, and my mind is filtering out 99% and just we're looking at this in this way. So where psychedelics come in is that filter is dissolved. You're with maybe the 100% of, if you're on ayahuasca and deep in the medicine, or on a 5-MeO experience where you're out, you're not in this universe anymore. You're with the universe. I've done that, right? It's like the sense of self is completely obliterated, and it's it's freedom that is unsustainable. You can't just be like blissed out and writhing on the floor and like, I'm in the oneness of God and also be a person in the world. That's a schizophrenic in a mental institution. And that's right. But we can visit it in a safe context. But where does hypnotherapy come in with this conversation? We all have these filters that say, I'm going to pay attention to this and in this particular way. And then the conscious mind says, maybe the conservative mind or the ethical mind will say, because this is the right way, but forget about that. It's happening no matter what. In hypnotherapy, we can adjust the filters. If you're filtering that every time somebody talks to you, it feels like an attack, that every time somebody goes, hey, Albert, I like your jacket. And you go, she thinks I look terrible today. My jacket's hideous. I'm burning it, right?
Yeah, what's wrong with my jacket?
Super distorted.
Yeah.
So we can use hypnotherapy to update the filter and make it more aligned with, let's not even talk about reality. Let's talk about practicality. What is most practical and realistic that is leading you to have a happier, healthier life?
I can give a direct example. Practical? Okay, sorry, I mentioned, man, like just to fill in there, is that there's a really clear metaphor parallel between entering hypnotic trance and actually psychedelic experience, and it is experienced with sound. So when people go into trance, one of the signs that you're going into trance is that background sounds change. People will notice, ooh, that sort of hum in the background or that weird traffic noise, which I was not paying attention to before. Suddenly I hear it. And similarly, when people go into psychedelic experience, they'll be like, I didn't notice that weird sound coming from outside or the birds or whatever. And this is because your ability to control and to be so fixated on what is happening has changed due to either going into trance or due to going into psychedelic experience. And it's a very similar thing. And it's intriguing to see that they both happen at the same time.
Yes, our perception of sensory input is altered in both hypnosis and on psychedelics. So the point that I was making was, sometimes people are really attached to what they already believe is right or real. But when you leave that paradigm and just look at what is useful and helpful to me, if my goal is to be happy and healthy, what's right and real is not as interesting anymore. So you might think, but I know that when somebody says something to me, like whatever it might be, right? I know that when she said that, she really meant this. I know it. But is it making you have a better relationship with your friend? Is it making you feel good inside? Is it helping you in any way? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And if you choose happy over righteousness, let's go into hypnosis and look at that filter that has convinced you so much that it's right, and make that structure, that energetic, psycho-spiritual phenomena serve your happiness and your mental and physical health, and not serve what some part of you is convinced is what's right and real. Right and real, not as interesting as happy and healthy.
Well, I think generally, sorry, just to, maybe we're running out of time too, is to summarize what we're sort of saying is that people may not know that there are many complementary aspects to both hypnosis, hypnotherapy, both for adventure and that you can be hypnotized to have psychedelic experiences, but also, maybe more importantly, for integration and for support. That what's key is that there is this process that you go through after a psychedelic experience where you want to really set a new course for your life. You know, it's funny, when you were talking, I had sort of this idea that the way we go through life a little bit is like ship's captains on a boat, you know, in the ocean, where we don't quite know where we are, but we're always saying like, I think I'm close to Africa, or I think I'm close in the Caribbean. And, you know, you might be kind of right, but then you realize, oh, wait, actually, no, I think I'm wrong. I'm in near Argentina. And then you always have to update your sense of where you are and what your reality is. And
I like that. I like that metaphor a lot.
And the truth is that you're never 100% right. You know, you never arrive at a point where you're like, this is who I am. And people would go, yeah, that's exactly who you are, because you're guessing.
Well, I would say that's true from an ego identity standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, if who you arrive at is, I'm spirit and I'm pure love, and I'm here to just generate peace and love, which is my mission, is I just want to always be feeling like no matter what's going on. For me, this is sanity. This is how I choose. We say staying sane, and yes, but also becoming more sane is my spiritual practices are, it doesn't, and I got this on ayahuasca as well. It was very amplified on ayahuasca, where whatever is happening in the world, in my life, and whatever, if I'm generating from within me peace and love, my choice, through my free will and my alignment with peace and love, I become peace and love, and it's coming from inside of me and it's going in this direction into the world. I'm no longer at the mercy, or I'm not a victim of other people. You know, someone asked me last night, I said I was in this group dinner, and this woman said, how do you, reset after these intense sessions with clients? And, how do you keep your own energy or like rebalance? And I'm like, it's completely the opposite for me. I never absorb somebody's negative stuff. And I think that's what makes me so good at what I do, is that I'm generating a field where they can have their experience. And no matter what's going on with them, they're screaming, they're crying, they're reliving their rape when they were 3 years old, which is a session I had 3 days ago. Whoa. I'm not only non-judgmental, I'm like a presence of, you can have this experience here. I'm here just being peace and love quietly and guiding you as appropriately so that you can have your experience without me absorbing it, worrying about it, reacting to it. I'm working from this level into the world. I'm not letting the world in to just tell me who I am or what I am. But on an ego level, of course I am. On an ego level, it's, well, I'm this way because my mom did this. And well, I was having a nice time until I saw my neighbor and then he told me to go fuck myself. And now I'm in a bad mood. My ego is doing that. But simultaneously, I'm on this greater journey where I'm letting that the spiritual qualities I'm allowing, but I'm also encouraging that these spiritual qualities, as I just described them, are slowly but surely allowing that the ego is just, again, less and less interesting to me, because generating peace and love from within and being that in the world is the most rewarding and enriching thing, more so than how are others perceiving me or what's my, image like egoically.
I agree with you. And so I felt that when you said it too, and that when we go back to it, when we ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, and we remember that we're doing it for love, that we feel it, we see it. And it's actually, I was going to say, it's the importance of emotions, that emotions is that great saying that emotions are the tunnels that take us towards the light. And that is true, very much true in this case. It's the role of sometimes emotion is itself a psychedelic experience. Emotions are beautiful. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And some people are writing about shamans are useless, pineal gland pistachio error. I think maybe somebody's on psychedelics and they're responding to this podcast right now. So great. Good. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe.
I don't know what pistachio error means either.
Yeah, pistachio error. That's a good name for a band. Pistachio error.
I would just say my opinion on shamans is just beware, because these are often self-appointed titles. And I know a girl, she has a raging eating disorder and like diagnosed depression, and she calls herself a shaman. And I really grit my teeth at that. I mean, I don't feel like it's my place to be like, listen, there's no way that you're qualified. It's non-judgmental. I wish her the best. I want her to overcome her challenges. But if your spirit and psyche are still struggling so much that you have an eating disorder and diagnosed depression, you're not spiritually, psychologically qualified to call yourself a shaman or be one, period.
Right, because
people doesn't mean you're a good or bad person. It just means there's a certain quality of interior life that needs to be pure so that you can show up for others very powerfully. And you can't if you are carrying that baggage that you haven't yet learned how to drop. And so if she can call herself a shaman, I'm like, I can't trust anybody who calls themselves a shaman. Who's a shaman? You? No. That's why I loved the people who facilitated the ayahuasca ceremony that I was in, because one of the things this woman said, meanwhile, she's just so radiant and beautiful from like inside out that she clearly, I'm telling you, like I saw an angel before I was on the medicine. Like I just showed up and was like, oh, angels are leading this. Okay, I'm feel safe here. She said, we will never call ourselves shamans. We are just here gratefully able to facilitate this medicine for you. Okay, I trust you. Humility, I trust. saying I'm a shaman and you're less than me because you haven't done the work that I've done, I don't really trust it.
I think we're just about out of time, but this has been a very edifying, interesting conversation. But on that note, we should probably say to people, like, you know, it's a crazy world out there. There are probably very trustworthy psychedelic leaders and shamans, and there are probably some that you really should be careful with. I would say that from my personal experience, I think that psychedelics are very useful in terms of creating and maintaining sanity. And they can really do some wonderful things for mental health, though sometimes that part of it is hyped. But I think that it's often helpful for people. Ayahuasca has a particular purpose. My last thing I'll say, it often is helpful for people who feel particularly stuck, that they're trying really hard. They've been working at something and they feel like they're not having the breakthrough that they deserve or need. And that's where it seems that for some people, ayahuasca can be very helpful, and other psychedelics possibly as well. So if that's, you know, that might be something to consider. And it could also be fun and interesting and loving. That was my experience too. Ayahuasca can be very loving.
I think that was a beautiful summary of the main points and also a great tag onto the end. Because if the question you might be asking yourself and listening to this is a psychedelic journey right for me at this time in my pursuit of, you know, greater mental health? If you suit that definition that Albert just offered, is you've been doing a lot of work and maybe you're seeing some gradual changes, but it's just like, why am I not? I think that is a person who's very well suited to a psychedelic journey, because it'll unstick whatever's been stuck. And so would a session of hypnotherapy. And you really want to commit to yourself, have the psychedelic journey, do a follow-up integration session of hypnotherapy. You're almost guaranteed an incredible transformation on the other side of that 1-2 punch. I would do it.
I like what you said. And just to add one more point, that is because of in a unique process called memory reconsolidation, meaning your brain actually reconsolidates around new ways of being, new ideas, new habits, and those are essentially permanent. So that's why you want to take this process seriously if you can, because it can really make, you know, a healthy change. Okay.
Really well said. Thank you, Albert. It's always wonderful to have these conversations.
Yeah.
The Staying Sane podcast is officially happening. We've been validated. We did 3 episodes saying like, okay, it's experimental. We're soft launching. Let's see if it resonates, if people are interested. And then last week we were invited onto the radio, thanks to Albert's connections. And we went on and we were like, okay, let's declare it. People are interested. That was the validation. So this is officially a podcast, and we're going to keep polishing it and being on more platforms. So.
All right. That sounds good. Right. Okay. So we'll see you probably next week, Staying Sane Podcast. It's currently at different times, but we'll try to, as we go, we'll try to structure it more. But you can also find it generally on this YouTube channel and soon on another YouTube channel as well. So
yes, let me please plug it. So I have created hypnotherapy.now as a YouTube channel that is not my YouTube channel. It's a collaborative hypnotherapy, hypnosis content from different professionals who have content. Instead of each of us striving to build our own audiences, let's all just put our stuff in the same place where people who are interested in this topic can find different professionals talking about this topic all in the same place. So that's Hypnotherapy Now. If you like hypnosis and hypnotherapy content, you will love our channel.
Right. Very exciting. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your for watching and for the intriguing commentary as well. And thank you, Cassandra. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you. Bye.